Hi, Madeline here from Sonic Bloom. This time I thought we're going to have a deep dive into the tuning systems that were introduced in Ableton Live 12. So we're going to look at how you can load them, what features disappear once you do, what features appear, then also all the settings to do with tunings and features. And then we're going to have a look at the file type that tunings have and where you can find additional tunings, because the ones included are fairly limited in geographical scope, and then also how you can create your own. And I also have prepared 15 tunings that you can download for free. We're going to get to that at the end. So let's start with where you can find them. You probably have figured that out already. You can find that on the library tunings in the browser. And here we've got quite a list as well already. And so let's initially play the clips that are prepared. So we can just double click this, load the first one, and now you can see that the tuning window is opening. For example, let's say we've closed this because we needed a space and we want to open it again. There's two options for this. First, you can go to View in the menu, and then here you can find tuning. But there's also another way. You can click on this browser view menu, and then you see tuning as well. There unfortunately isn't a shortcut, which would be nice if that was added. So now we can show it again. If you want to get rid of a tuning again, that's really simple. You simply have to click on this here and then click delete. So we can just double click on it and load it again. Let's play it. So this is quite different from the standard tuning, and the standard tuning in Ableton Live and in all other DAWs is by default the 12 TET system. So it's the chromatic scale, European scale, with a standard pitch of 440 Hertz. So let's say we wanted to have the standard tuning, but we want the reference pitch, so the standard pitch, to be 432 Hertz. So we can just simply search for 12 TET here, double click on that, and then here we get 440 Hertz, and we can simply change this. And now it's the middle A is 432 Hertz instead of 440. So that's how simple it is. But I've also included the 432 tuning in the free scales. So let's go back and maybe go to the first one by Ableton. So let's have a look at these features here. So we already looked at the reference pitch. So that's always the reference pitch in this case. It's very different from the standard tuning. And the reference octave is the third one. And the reference note within the scale is the first one, which is 0. So then you also have settings here. We can change those settings, but you always see that the reference pitch changes in reference to that. And if you do a double click, you can return to the default for the tuning. And then here we've got the lowest note and then also the highest note. So -6 an octave and +12. And then which note within the scale that represents, and then also the hertz. So we can also change that. So let's say you've made changes. So all you have to do if you want to save that is click on the floppy disk icon here that you know from presets already. And then you can just rename it something and press enter. And you can find it in the user library. So then there's also another button here, which is a link for the tuning system. By the way, let's go back to the tunings. If you want to get a little bit of an idea of what each scale or tuning is, then you can just hover over one. I have no idea how to pronounce that, so I'm going to just not do that. But it basically tells you in the info text window in the bottom left the number of notes per octave. So here we've got 6, and it tells you a little bit more about it, that it's actually mainly used in Iranian religious music and so on and so forth. But if you want to dive even further in, then this button here opens the Ableton website, so the tuning.ableton.com. So that's a specific sub-website for the tuning systems. And here you can get a lot of information as well. You can go through everything, or you can just go through the information. You can actually play things here as well and try things out and get some more information if you want to dive even deeper. So that's quite interesting that you have more in-depth information for that. Okay, so then as soon as we've loaded a tuning system, what vanishes here is the scale mode setting. So by default, that's set to C and major. I can just get rid of it again. So here you can see you can't turn the scale mode on, and we can't set the scale. And then I'm going to double click on that again and load it. And then that has vanished. I'm going to do that again. And then you can also see that here the scale, anything to do with scale, vanishes as well. So here this setting will vanish. Then here highlight scale, and scale will vanish as well. So just have a look. So that's all gone. So that's just something to be aware of. But at the same time, we will actually get additional settings in the in-out section. So if you don't have the in-out section on, you can turn it on in here or with a shortcut. And then here you see in all the MIDI tracks, bypass tuning. So when I turn this on, what will happen is that the tuning system is ignored on this track. So any clip on this track playing when this is turned on means that it will use the standard tuning. Sounds a little bit off. Then if you load a tuning system, there's also basically the notes stay in the same position, which might not correspond to where the notes technically would be within the tuning system. So if you want to make sure that it actually puts the note nearest to the tuning system that you've loaded, then you can go to options in the menu and then turn retune set on loading tuning systems on. It'll always try to find the nearest note for the tuning system, and so it will likely move some MIDI notes. What can also happen is, for example, if you're using chords, is that MIDI notes vanish, or if you have overlapping notes in melodies as well. So try this out if it makes sense or not, just so that you're aware that you can use this. Then another interesting thing is here in the piano roll, if you hover over the keys, here for example you see E Choron 2. There might be different note names depending on the scale on tuning that you've loaded. And then, so in Ableton Live, all live instruments can deal with the tuning system being loaded. That works. MPE-enabled plugins can do this too when the pitch bend range is set to 48 semitones. So you're going to have to make sure with everything that it's set to 48 semitones, and then it technically should work if it is MPE-enabled. Here underneath bypass tuning, we also find a drop-down menu that's new, and then it says all keys by default. So that means that you can tell your MIDI controller which keys are supposed to be playing the notes in the scale. So the default is all keys, so that would be all 12 keys. Then you can also set it to black keys only, which would be centered around C sharp, and white keys only, which is centered around C. And then you can also set it to closest in pitch to keyboard. It might be useful to kind of try different settings out depending. There's also the possibility to have a custom controller layout. And then if you want to use that, then you can configure the MIDI layout by here clicking on these 3 dots. Then pinned note, which should be basically the reference key. So by default that's C3, 60, but you can also choose any of the others. Then that note should play, say, octave 1 and D, and so on and so forth. So you can only set this once, right? So for example, if I change this to E Choron, and then go back to C3, then it's still there. And then you can set the layout options. So all keys, black keys, white keys. And then you can also say it should skip every first note, third note, whatever. And then how many notes are within an octave. And you can also set up which unfilled notes. So if notes are not used, what they're supposed to be playing. Default here, as you can see, is silence, or it should be playing the following notes. So the notes after that. And then if you're happy with the setting, you can save it. Or if you've tried a custom controller layout and it's not working out, you can just click on reset and then cancel or save. But I haven't saved anything yet, so it's all good. So let's have a look at the scale type. So here you can see the ending is ASCL, Ableton Scala file. So basically there's a software that's existed for quite a while that is called Scala. And with this one, you could do tunings already for ages. And that has developed the SCL Scala file type. And Ableton's file type basically is based on this one, and it uses the same syntax. So the only difference is that basically there's certain extra information that in the original Scala file type isn't read out at all. It's just a commentary, but in Ableton Live that actually has meaning. So let's have a quick look at the tunings that I'm offering for free. So those are 15. So if you want to load your own tunings, you can see that you can just load them on the places, as I've done now. And here I've got 15, so I've got the 432 hertz that I mentioned already. Then I've got some ancient Greek ones. We can actually try them out as well. So let's play that. There's a couple of Indian ones, Japanese one. This is from Bali. The ragas are all Indian. Then I've got a Thai one and then one from Zimbabwe that you can all try out and use. And you can see that they all have the ASCL formatting as well. You can find a massive archive of Scala files, so the original file format, on the website of the maker. I'll link that in the description as well. You can just simply scroll down to the bottom and then you can find the scale archive, which has over 5,100 scale files for Scala. So if you are interested in a certain tuning system from anywhere around the world, there's a good chance that you can find in that. And you can simply add this file either to your user library or the whole collection, or through add folder, and then use that simply the same way. Or you can make your own. And so on the Ableton tuning website, you also have a section to create your own tuning easily. It's really simple. We'll just walk through that quickly. So I'll link that as well in the description. And you can also find it on the menu almost at the bottom. Make your own tuning, easy to find. So this is quite simple. So right now the settings are the European standard tuning, and you can set the tempo and then just play it. You also have a play window where you can see the pitch. So right now this is actually taking from my mic, and then you've got the sequence that you could change, and you can just play individual notes as well. You can use your keyboard to play certain things, so you can really play around and create your own tuning system this way. And then we've got a code window where you would add the code so you can download everything and then use it in Ableton Live, or everything at once. So let's go to code. And so here the great thing is that basically everything is giving you description as well. So right now here I've selected the first line, and that says, this line is a comment that suggests a file name for the tuning system. So I can just name that something. And then you've got a description that you can add. So what kind of tuning is it? Then the next one is the pitches within an octave, or the pitches within the tuning system. Not all use octaves. These are always basically like comments. And then you've got the pitches that has the root note. And then here everything is set in cents. So it's 100 cents between each. And then you can see that the pitches can be either described in cents, so that would be 100, it could also be 150, but it always has to have a dot after. So I could also go more specific and say 004, that works. But for example, if I forget the dot, it tells me at the bottom, the pitch defined on line 7 has a frequency greater than 20 kilohertz. This will be inaudible. So this is really helpful if you want to do anything. So if the syntax is incorrect, it will notify you. There's also another way you can do this. So for example, if I select this, and you can see that you can also play things. So you could play drones, like C major. If you have more than one on, you can click on one, like for example, and press, then you can press Control on Windows or Command on Mac to turn them all off again. And for example, if you have a tuning system already, for example, I can just select this, and I've already copied something from a Raga tuning system. So I just want to show you that it doesn't have to be in cents. It can also be in frequency ratios. So 9/8, 5/4, and so on and so forth. And so right now here, this tuning system only has 7 notes, not 12. And so it tells me found 5 extra note names on line 15, remove extra note names. And we can just delete that. Or you can change them as well, name them whatever you like. So you can also change this and say C1, whatever, and then it would be called C1 in the piano roll. Then here, these are all specific, so they're not in the original Scala files. So here you've got Ableton reference pitch. So you've got the 440 hertz. Then this is the octave 3 and the 9th note, so that would be the A. And then at the bottom you can add the link, but I've tried this. It doesn't actually work if it's not a specific Ableton link. At least right now it doesn't. Right, so I could just say, call this Raga, and then call this Indian Raga. It still tells me that the reference pitch index 9 must be less than the number of specified pitches. So I'll set it just to 0. And let's say we're really happy with everything now. We can also play around with things. But then I would recommend switching to the all-in-one at the beginning, because otherwise things might be overwritten. And then you can export. So you can either export it as an Ableton Live set. I don't think I need to describe what it is. The Ableton Scala file, so for Ableton Live 12, and then the original Scala file. And the Scala file has basically, like the Scala, the software, uses 2 files. So one is the SCL file, and the other one is the KBM file. That's the keyboard mapping. So the reference pitch is actually added here in the second file as well. So just so you know, I think most likely you will want to export your scales either as an Ableton Live set if you just wanted to use for one project, or as a Scala file for Ableton Live 12. And then you can just simply do that, let's say that, and you can just, it's just saved. And you can see that the file name here is saved automatically. That's it. I hope you found this useful. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Until then, bye.